Okay, let's dive in. The ultimate power move, according to our source material, make them need you. It lays out this pretty ruthless rule: never teach them enough so they can just get rid of you.
Right.
We're looking at this paradox, where true power, real independence, doesn't come from you standing alone. It comes from making others completely dependent on you,
Mhm.
almost for their survival.
Exactly. It's what we could call reversed independence. Think about it. The person who's totally self-sufficient, they've often isolated themselves.
Mhm.
No real power there. The best spot to be in is where you're indispensable. You're the key piece holding their whole
Yeah.
world together. And their need for you, well, that's what actually sets you free.
Okay, so let's unpack that. Maybe starting with people who got it spectacularly wrong. The condottieri, these mercenary captains in Renaissance Italy, they won battles, got powerful,
Hmm.
but then they often ended up banished. Or worse, executed. Why didn't their success protect them?
Well, fundamentally because they were replaceable. They were guns for hire, essentially. Good ones, sure, but there were always others. There's this story about a mercenary who saved Siena. The people there, they realized they couldn't really afford to pay him what he was worth.
So what did they do?
They took the, let's say, economical route. They killed him.
Wait, killed him, their savior.
Yep. And then declared him a patron saint. Efficient. Right.
Brutally efficient. Wow.
And it wasn't a one-off. Look at the Count of Carmagnola. Big-time
Mhm.
condottiere for Venice, wins major victories, then gets called back to Venice, marched over the Bridge of Sighs, straight to a dungeon,
Yeah.
beheaded in Piazza San Marco.
That's it.
Because their power, their cost, it just made them liabilities. And since you could swap them out,
Yeah.
well, getting rid of them wasn't a huge loss.
So being replaceable was basically a death sentence. Who actually got it right then? Who mastered being essential?
Otto von Bismarck. In Prussia, he really understood this rule. You don't necessarily align with the strongest master. You find the weak one. He attached himself to the, well, pretty vulnerable King Frederick William IV, and then his brother, King William. Bismarck became their strength, their brain, their backbone.
But didn't King William, the later one, actively dislike him? I mean, wouldn't that personal stuff matter?
You'd think so, but not when you've built the whole structure around yourself. Bismarck controlled everything in the military, state policy. Whenever he threatened to resign, which he did, the king had to back down, even though he apparently couldn't stand the guy.
Because the whole thing would collapse.
Exactly, the king couldn't risk it. Bismarck knew the system needed him more than the king disliked him. Personal feelings. Irrelevant.
Okay, that's structural power. But what about, like, psychological tactics? When the master is maybe paranoid, even once you've gone.
For that, there's this great story about King Louis XI of France and his astrologer. The king, apparently fearing this guy's influence, calls him in. The plan, have him tossed out a high window.
Oh, boy.
But first, Louis asks him one last question. Tell me, what's your fate going to be?
And the astrologer?
Quick as anything, he says. Sire, I shall die just 3 days before your majesty.
Huh. Genius. Instant job security.
Absolute genius.
Yeah.
The threat just vanished. Louis started protecting him, giving him gifts, making sure he was safe. Couldn't risk tempting fate, you see. That's survival by pure necessity.
So our sources kind of contrast two ways to get this indispensable status. The astrologer, that's like intensive power. A unique skill or trick nobody else has.
Mm-hmm.
Like Michelangelo, right? He could always find another pope, but Pope Julius II couldn't just find another Michelangelo.
Exactly. That's one way. The other is extensive power. Think Henry Kissinger in the Nixon White House. He wasn't necessarily a unique talent like Michelangelo, but he wove himself into everything. So many departments, so many connections.
So getting rid of him would just cause chaos.
Utter chaos. Removing him wasn't just difficult, it would have been structurally catastrophic. His sheer entanglement was his shield.
Yeah, but relying on this kind of dependence, it feels cold. It's not like the master loves you for it. Probably breeds resentment, maybe fear.
Oh, absolutely. It definitely doesn't breed affection. And that brings up, Machiavelli.
Better to be feared than loved.
Precisely. Because fear, Machiavelli argued, you can control. Love, affection, that's unpredictable. Risky. Better to be needed, even feared, because they're scared of what happens if you're gone.
Right. So the core lesson really boils down to weave yourself in so deep that getting rid of you is unthinkable, a disaster for them, even if they hate your guts.
That's the essence of it. And maybe a final thought to chew on. Consider the reversal. This drive for total independence, like maybe J.P. Morgan trying to control everything.
Yeah.
It often backfires. Leads to isolation. People resent you. Your support structure crumbles.
So maybe absolute independence isn't the goal.
Maybe not. Perhaps the most stable power isn't being totally free, but being in this state of mutual dependence, where the master is basically your captive, terrified of losing you, almost like they're your slave in a way.
Huh. A very delicate, maybe dangerous balance to strike.
Definitely something to think about.